It's once again time for us to cover 5 more upcoming MMOs. If you're new here, every month we try to pick 5 games that haven't been released yet and walk you through what they have to offer. We try our best to come up with games that are in different subcategories. This way, no 2 games are the same. With all of that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this one. Kicking off the list this month is going to be Night Crows. This one is another MMO coming from developer WeMade. If you saw our last month's video, this studio might sound familiar, as they are also the ones developing Legends of Ymir. Just like the Legends of Ymir, this one is also running on the UE5 engine and will be cross-platform for PC and mobile devices. This will take place in 13th century Europe and is another visually stunning title if the trailers are indeed based on actual gameplay footage. The game currently features 4 classes to choose from: Swordsman, Witch, Warrior, and Hunter. There are also 8 subclasses and 3 stages of advancement for each class. Additionally, every class seems to have the option between 2 types of weapons. For example, a soldier can either wield a sword and shield or dual weapons, providing a decent amount of options to decide how you want to play the game. This is going to be another open world game, and as such, it's going to feature a few options for traversal, such as a horse and glider. The game will also have a day-night cycle, which seems to be slowly becoming a new standard in MMOs, as well as action combat. From the trailers, we also get a glimpse of what appears to be some massive world bosses, which we can assume would be a form of raid content. Regarding PvP, they are boasting a massive scale of over 1,000 in the Battlefront, which is a culmination of all 3 servers. Also, the marketplace will be shared between all servers, so that prices will be the same no matter where you play. So far, this one seems very similar to their other title, Legends of Ymir, just with a different theme to it. So if you like Vikings, maybe check out Legends. And if you're into medieval European fantasy, then this will be the one for you. Now, let's get into the monetization. Similar to all their other MMO titles, this one will utilize NFTs and will be running on the Web3 blockchain. This is one of the few complaints we currently have, as we're not particularly fond of utilizing NFTs in video games. Currently, there's no release date as of yet, though they have recently opened up a pre-registration if you're interested in checking this one out. Next up on our list is Crystal of Atlan. This one is being developed by Nuverse and is a cross-platform between PC and mobile. It is an anime-styled action MMO set in a magic punk world. If you're like me and haven't heard of magic punk, it's basically stories that blend magic and technology to create a fantasy science where magic is either enabling technology or it is considered another form of technology. The game takes place on the floating world called Atlan, where magic has become the source of power for all things. There's currently 4 classes in the game for you to pick from. Those are Swordsman, Musketeer, Magister, and Puppeteer, which further branch off into 2 subclasses that you'll get to pick between once you reach level 15. Before you pick your class, you'll get to try out all 4 options. This is one of those features I wish more games would include, as it's always nice to get a feel for a class before putting in all the effort to create a character, just to realize that the playstyle isn't what you were expecting. Now, they advertise this as an open world MMO, though that's not really the case here. It's more like a semi-open world. There are zones or areas, whichever you prefer to call them, that are open, but it's not one big open singular map like you'd expect when someone says open world. As for the PvE content, the game obviously has the main story for you to follow along, which does offer story dungeons that you're required to solo. However, after you've unlocked them, you'll be able to do these same dungeons on Elite mode, which in turn allows you to enter with 1 additional person. After completing the Elite dungeons, you will unlock the ability to re-challenge the final boss of the main story. Additionally, there's a separate mode that allows you to retackle all the other bosses from the story, which you can do at any time. One of the more fun modes is Tempered Trials, in which you'll fight waves of enemies as you work your way up in levels. This can be attempted solo or in a party of up to 3 players. Then we've got Arenas, where you take on 3 waves of bosses, and finally, there's a rotating list of events that takes place at certain times. Now let's talk about one of the major downsides of this game, and that's the energy system. The game requires you to spend stamina for almost anything you do. The only way you can acquire more is through the cash shop. On the bright side, characters don't share stamina, so the more characters you have, the more you can play. The game does have a gathering and crafting system which you can do in your downtime, while you're out of stamina, as well as PvP, which operates on its own special currency. On the topic of PvP, the game offers 1v1s or 3v3s with PvP specific gear that you'll be earning through PvP. Alright, now let's talk about the elephant in the room, and by that, I mean the monetization. This game will feature a battle pass with artifact boxes that are this game's gacha mechanic, as well as a cash shop in which you can flat out spin to win, which should come as no surprise given the type of game this is. With all of that being said, if you still want to give this game a shot, you can head over to their website and apply for beta access. Coming up next, we've got Trimurti Online. This one is an old school classic MMO being developed by Gameolic, and while it may look like it was made in the early 2000s, it's actually a brand new game being built on the UE5 engine. The game takes place in a fully open world with an Oriental fantasy theme. As for the content on the PvE side, they've got boss hunts, raids, and dungeons. Then, over on the PvP side, they've got casual and ranked arenas, duels, PK mode, and guild wars. Now, for all of our life skillers out there, the game is listed as having gathering and crafting. However, at this current time, the system has not been enabled. Currently, there's a total of 8 tribes to choose from, which are the classes in the game, and the combat system is tab targeting. One of the features I really appreciate is that all cosmetics can be farmed in-game through completing content, such as killing certain bosses. This way, if someone is wearing something that looks amazing, it's probably because they did something amazing. And that's pretty much all we know about the game at this time. It's still very early in development, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on if you're a fan of classic MMOs. As for the monetization, they claim there will be no cash shop, and it'll be free to play with an option for a premium pass. Currently, we have no release date set for this one, though they did just finish up an open alpha test earlier this month, so we may be getting a beta test later this year. Next on our list is one we're looking forward to, Once Human. This one is a survival looter shooter MMO being developed by Starry Studio and NetEase. With it being a survival game, it has all the typical systems you would expect, such as stamina, hunger, and thirst. However, unlike most survival games, if you manage your meters, you'll receive buffs, kind of like how it works in Valheim. The meters for each of these are broken down into 4 tiers, and for each tier you have active, the more buffs you'll receive. The world is fully open with various enemy types and objectives for you to tackle, such as world bosses, dynamic events, and strongholds, which are areas that you have to complete several objectives in order to receive additional loot and EXP. As this is a survival game, there is a base building system which can be done almost anywhere on the map, excluding things like building too close to a stronghold. On the note of base building, this involves placing a structure to claim a territory. You can then completely customize your base and upgrade it through the crafting system. Also, if you decide that you don't like the placement of your base, you'll be able to rotate it, unlike in most survival games. As far as the base upgrading goes, there are 5 different archetypes for you to invest in. There's territory construction, which is simply base building, facilities, which make workbenches to craft armor and weapons, tactile supplies, for crafting ammo and explosives, fortification, for building base defenses, and finally, there's logistics, for cooking and purifying water. After you've gotten your base set up, in order to craft weapons and armor, you're going to need blueprints, which can be acquired through completing missions or by completing strongholds. Also, to craft, you'll need energy, as yes, this game does unfortunately have an energy system, which is also used for other things such as fast travel and unlocking enhancements. You'll be able to earn energy back in-game by exploring the map or completing daily tasks, and those are the only options we know of so far. Another area you'll be able to spend points outside of base upgrades is on enhancing your character's proficiency with weapons, offering you some buffs such as after dealing damage, your reload speed will be increased by 1%, stacking up to 20 times. On the note of combat, there will also be zones for PvP that are clearly marked, so if this is not your interest, you should have no problem avoiding those areas. And for those who want a pure PvP experience, there will be PvP servers available. The last thing we got to talk about is the sanity system in this game. As it is an apocalyptic world, you'll have to manage your sanity meter, or your health will begin to drop. You can do this by equipping gear that reduces the effects of sanity, taking certain consumables, or simply resting in bed to recover sanity. So far, this one seems like it's worth checking out if you're into survival MMOs, though, like I said, we're not the biggest fans of the whole energy system in games. And as for the monetization, it's still up in the air at this time, so we'll expect to see how that unfolds. If you're interested in this one, it's expected to release in mid to late 2024.
We will come again. We'll come again until we're done.
Finishing off our list this month is Corepunk. This one is an isometric MMO from developer Artificial Core that's taken a lot of elements from mobile games such as Dota and League of Legends. Getting right into it, this one is meant to be more of a hardcore MMO. There are several systems that you've probably grown accustomed to that you won't find here. For example, there's no out-of-combat health regen, which means in order to recover HP, you'll instead have to either rest at a campfire, eat food, or utilize HP pods. Though you'll probably find yourself using them in conjunction, as resting at a campfire or just eating food is a slow process. Now, one of the biggest factors that may turn a lot of people away from trying this game is the quest system. The game has no indicators of quest givers, and there are no markers on the map for quest objectives. This means that you will need to talk to every NPC and read what the quest wants you to do. Upon completion, you'll need to remember who gave you the quest so that you can turn it back in for their reward. I personally don't hate it, though at times it can be a struggle to remember everything. As for the character creator, they currently have 12 heroes to choose from, with some very basic customization. The options for characters are based around the classic Holy Trinity system of tank, healer, and DPS, which personally, I always take that as a good sign, as it usually indicates there's going to be a lot of group play. Based on the hero you pick, you'll have up to 6 abilities at your disposal. Now, you can gain additional abilities from what's known as artifacts, which will also be where the majority of your stat points come from. The rest being from your weapon, as your armor in this game is just for looks and provides no stats. Getting into the combat of the game, you're going to need to be careful about taking on too many enemies and making sure to avoid telegraphed attacks. The game is very punishing and enemies will deal massive damage. However, one thing we did notice is the current lack of enemies. They are often very spread out and sparse, though that's based off the last test phase, and hopefully they can adjust this before the full release. As for the world itself, it is completely open and there's a fog of war system meant to incentivize tactics. It also has a dynamic weather system as well as day and night cycles. For all of our life skillers out there, the game does feature gathering and crafting systems, where the higher the level, the more proficient you become at the task. For example, when you mine a node, you'll only be able to get 1 ore from it, but as you level up, you'll be able to mine 2 ore from a single node. As for the crafting, the higher your level, the higher tier items you can craft, just as you would expect. This is definitely a unique twist of an MMO MOBA hybrid, though it seems to be pulling it off pretty well so far, and we're definitely interested in trying it out. As for the monetization, this one is going to be buy to play, plus there will be a battle pass and in-game shop with cosmetics. Currently, there's no release date, but if you're interested, you can head over to their website and sign up for whenever they have their next test phase. That's going to wrap things up for this list. Let us know in the comments if you plan on playing any of these games or there's another MMO you're interested in. As always, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.